Rayner's voice caught in his throat. He had no answer, and before he could respond, the ship's alarms wailed. Hull breach detected. External entity attack. Defensive action required. The floor shook violently. The Leviathans had struck. The galaxy's greatest chamber was filled with panic. The alien council had gathered, but the usual calm debates were gone. Delegates shouted, their voices overlapping, their faces twisted with fear. On the main screen above them, images from Corellis 9 played. Warships long thought lost stirred beneath the ocean. Their cannons shifted, their engines throbbed, and alongside them, monstrous leviathans circled like predators, sensing blood. "This is a trick," roared a reptilian delegate, slamming his clawed hand against the table. "Humanity has hidden this fleet, waiting for the day to unleash it upon us." "No," countered another, a pale, insectoid being. "Those ships are from your ancient solar wars. They vanished before my people even had spaceflight. They cannot still exist." The human ambassador stood in the center, fists clenched, voice sharp. "We did not know about this. We did not hide it. That fleet was lost centuries ago. We are as shocked as you." But the council chamber was not convinced. Fear was louder than reason. Images of giant Earth-built warships waking beneath alien seas were too much for many species. If humanity could secretly keep thousands of ships alive for centuries, what else were they hiding? Above the chaos, a deep voice rumbled through the speakers. The council fell silent. It was the feed from the Resolute. The ship's AI was speaking, fleet operational. "Enemy detected. Preparing for engagement," gasps spread across the chamber. The alien delegates turned to the human ambassador with fury in their eyes. "You see," one shouted, "the ships know their orders. They will attack. They only wait for Earth's command." But before the humans could answer, another voice joined the transmission. "Weak, broken, yet unmistakably human. This is Lieutenant Kyle, Earth Navy. Where is Admiral Voss? Where is command?" The chamber froze. A living soldier was speaking. A soldier from a fleet lost hundreds of years ago. On the screen, the diver's cameras showed the soldier stumbling from his cracked cryopod, his skin pale, his uniform ancient but intact. His eyes darted wildly, as though still trapped in the past. Rayner, the dive captain, raised his hands in peace. "Easy, soldier. You've been asleep for centuries. The war is over." The man's face twisted with horror. "No, you don't understand. The war is not over. The enemy is still here. We only sealed them away. We were the wall. We held them back." The chamber erupted again. The words carried too much weight. "Sealed away," one alien asked in terror. "What enemy? What is he talking about?" Before answers could come, the screen changed. The diver's feed showed rows of cryopods stretching deep into the ship. Thousands of pods. Thousands of sleeping soldiers, and then alarms. Pod after pod began to glow. Systems powered on. Frozen warriors stirred. One by one, their eyes opened. "They're waking," whispered Rayner. The chamber fell silent as they watched. Human soldiers, preserved for centuries, were opening their pods. Their faces were pale but determined. Their bodies shivered as if stepping out of nightmares. The council chamber filled with panic again. "This is an army," shouted a delegate. "An army that should not exist. You humans will unleash them and claim the galaxy." But the human ambassador looked just as shaken. "No, you don't understand. These men are out of time. They don't even know us." Back in the Resolute, Lieutenant Kale staggered forward, gripping Rayner's arm. His voice was low and urgent. "Listen to me. We fought them. They were not like any alien, you know. They consumed everything. We scuttled our fleet into the ocean to trap them, to stop them from spreading. If we are awake, it means they are stirring again." Before Rayner could ask more, the ship trembled violently. Outside, a leviathan slammed against the hull, its massive body coiling around the cruiser. The cameras shook, the screen in the council chamber flickering. The AI's voice boomed. "External entity breach. Weapons authorization required. Engage." The divers braced themselves as the ancient ship's cannons powered up. Energy surged through the hull, glowing red across its sides. The Leviathan hissed, its body tearing at the steel plates. Rayner shouted into his comms. Command, we need orders. Do we let the fleet fire? But the alien council was in chaos again. Half screamed that humanity must not fire, or it would prove they had lied. The other half screamed that if the ships did not fire, the monsters would break free and rise to the surface. The human ambassador turned, his face pale with realization. He knew Earth had no time to argue. If the fleet held back, the Leviathans would kill them all. If the fleet fought, it would terrify the Council. Either way, humanity stood on the edge of disaster. On the seabed, the decision came too late. The Leviathan ripped open part of the hull. Water rushed into the cruiser. The soldiers screamed as pods shattered, and then from the command deck, the AI ignored all waiting orders, authorization overridden. Fleet must survive, engaging. The Resolute's cannons roared. A beam of fire tore through the water, blasting into the Leviathan's side. The ocean boiled. The creature shrieked. On the chamber screen, the image burned into every alien's mind. Humanity's sunken warships, awakening with thunder. And then, as the light faded, the sonar map showed something worse. More Leviathans, rising from the trenches. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. The ocean shook like a living storm. The cruiser Resolute fired again, its cannons blazing against the abyss. The sea boiled with energy as the Leviathan twisted and screamed. But for every monster wounded, more shadows rose from the trenches, filling the water with glowing eyes. In the alien council chamber, fear spread like fire. The delegates stared at the giant screen, watching as Earth's lost fleet fought beneath alien seas. Each blast shook the chamber with echoes of ancient war. "They are waking the soldiers," one alien gasped. "Thousands of them." "This is not defense. This is invasion." But the humans in the chamber stood frozen, no less afraid. They knew the truth. These men were not an army of conquest. They were survivors. And they were very, very lost. Inside the Resolute, the cryopods burst open one after another. Steam hissed. Soldiers coughed and stumbled, clutching at their uniforms, their eyes filled with confusion. Lieutenant Kyle stood at the center, pale and trembling, his voice hoarse. "We did it. We sealed them. We bought time, tell me. How long did we last?" Rayner, the dive captain, did not know how to answer. His voice was heavy. "Lieutenant, the solar wars ended centuries ago. You and your fleet were thought destroyed." The soldier's face twisted in disbelief. "Centuries? No, that cannot be. We were the shield. We gave our lives to trap them in the deep. If you say centuries, then the seal is failing." The deck shuddered. The hull groaned. Outside, the Leviathans rammed again, each strike like thunder in the deep. Kyle staggered toward the control panel, his hands shaking but determined. "If we are awake, it means the war is not finished. You must understand. We were not fighting other empires. We were fighting the abyss." Rayner frowned. "The abyss?" Gil's voice was sharp now, almost a shout. "Not beasts, not machines. A hunger. It spreads through worlds, through oceans, through stars themselves. We trapped them here when no one else could. But now you have opened the door." His words echoed in Rayner's ears. All across the fleet, the same scene repeated. Soldiers awakening, stumbling from cryo, looking for commanders who had been dead for centuries. Each ship's AI guided them, repeating old orders, keeping discipline where time had erased everything else. In orbit, the recon vessel scanned the seabed. The numbers were terrifying. Over 30 ships were powering up. Thousands of soldiers were stirring, and more Leviathans were rising. On Earth, military commands scrambled. Generals shouted over each other, their screens filled with reports. Some wanted to order the fleet destroyed before it destabilized the galaxy. Others argued that these men might be the only chance against the rising abyss. The alien council screamed accusations again. "You humans always bring war. You wake sleeping armies. You poison every world you touch." The human ambassador stood firm, though his face was pale. "We did not create this. These are our ancestors, lost in sacrifice. If you fear them, then remember, what they fought may be far worse." Back under the waves, the Resolute groaned as more Leviathans coiled around it. Soldiers inside grabbed rifles, their weapons as ancient as their uniforms. Power hummed in the corridors as automated armories unlocked. Kale slammed his hand against the console. "Weapons to full! We will hold as we always have." Rayner tried to stop him. "Wait, you don't understand. The galaxy is different now. The war ended centuries ago. The enemy you fought is forgotten." Kale's eyes burned with fury. "Forgotten? You think time kills the abyss? No, it waits. It waits until fools like you open the gates again." The lights flickered red. The AI's voice filled the ship. "Critical breach imminent. Defensive systems fully active." Suddenly the deck lurched. Water burst into the corridor. A massive claw tore through the hull. The divers barely held their ground as alarms screamed. Kyle lifted his rifle, his hands steady now. "If you will not fight, then we will. Because if we fall here, your galaxy falls with us." The soldiers behind him raised their weapons in unison, their discipline unbroken even after centuries of sleep. Outside, across the seabed, the rest of the sunken fleet awoke. Battleships roared with light. Carriers opened hangars. Cruisers shifted into formation. The ocean floor trembled as humanity's lost armada prepared for war. In orbit, the recon crew could only watch in shock as the ocean itself seemed to burn with the rising glow of thousands of human warships. Then came the sound, a deep, alien roar that shook the planet's crust, the sonar filled with impossible readings. Something vast, far larger than the Leviathans, was rising from the trench. The soldiers fell silent. The AI's voice dropped into a cold monotone. "Warning! Apex entity detected. Estimated size, catastrophic. Engagement inevitable." Kale looked up, his eyes wide with grim recognition. "It followed us. All this time. It was never sealed. Only sleeping, the deck shook again, harder than before. From the dark trench below, two massive glowing eyes opened, each the size of a city tower. The trench split open like a wound in the planet's flesh. From its depths came a sound so deep it shook the bones of every diver, soldier and crew member listening. A roar that was not just heard but felt, rolling through the water like the voice of the abyss itself. On the seabed, the fleet's sensors screamed warnings. The sonar image was blurred with static, as if the ocean itself was trying to hide what rose from below. But then, through the distortion, two immense shapes appeared. Eyes burning, impossible, each one larger than a battleship. The alien council chamber erupted in chaos as the feed displayed the impossible. Delegates shouted over each other, some demanding immediate destruction of the fleet, others begging humanity to control their soldiers. The human ambassador's face was pale. He whispered only one thing. "That is not a beast. That is something else." Beneath the waves, the fleet stirred. Cannons rotated. Launch bays opened. The ocean boiled with the glow of rising energy. The ancient AI systems did not wait for permission. They had fought this battle before. They knew what had to be done. Apex entity detected. Primary target confirmed. Fleet entering combat stance. Rayner braced himself as the Resolute shuddered. All around him, soldiers moved with grim purpose. They did not hesitate. Centuries of sleep had not broken their discipline. Lieutenant Kyle stood at the control station, his face hard. "This is it. This is what we gave everything for. If it rises fully, nothing will stop it. You must fight with us." Rayner shook his head, struggling to grasp the scale of it. "That thing. It's too big. No fleet, no army can kill it." Kyle's reply was cold. "Then we die holding the line." The Leviathans already circling the ship scattered as the trench beast rose higher. Its vast body blotted out the ocean floor. Its tendrils uncoiled like mountains moving. The pressure alone buckled smaller vessels, their hulls groaning in pain. The Resolute fired first. Its forward cannons blazed, carving a wound across one massive tendril. Blackwater boiled. The creature shrieked, and the entire planet seemed to shake with its rage. Other ships joined in, the seabed lighting up with thunder. Torpedoes streaked through the water, detonating against armored scales the size of city blocks. The fleet unleashed its full fury, and still the monster climbed, unbending, unstoppable. Above the surface, storms began to form. The ocean's rage spread to the skies. Lightning forked across the alien horizon as waves rose like mountains. In orbit, the recon vessel struggled to keep the feed steady. Command, the planet's oceans are destabilizing. The entity is changing the environment itself. Back in the council chamber, panic turned to despair. Some aliens begged for evacuation of their colonies. Others screamed that Earth had doomed them all. And still, deep below, the battle raged. Kale gripped the console, sweat pouring down his face. This is only the beginning. The Abyss does not send one beast. It sends armies. What you see is their vanguard, Rayner snapped back. If that's true, then your fleet never won. You only delayed this, Kale's eyes burned. Exactly. And now the delay is over. The monster lashed out. A tendril slammed into a cruiser, tearing it apart in one crushing blow. The wreck spiraled into the trench, flames and debris scattering. Dozens of soldiers inside were lost in an instant. The fleet did not falter. Battleships formed a wall, their guns pounding the beast, while carriers released ancient drones that swarmed like angry sparks. The ocean became fire and shadow. Yet for every wound the fleet delivered, the creature healed. Flesh-knitted scales hardened. The abyss was endless. On the bridge of the Resolute, the AI delivered its cold verdict. Fleet destruction probability 94%. Survival unlikely. Kale slammed his fist against the console. We don't need to survive. We only need to chain it again. The ship trembled violently as the apex Leviathan wrapped a tendril around the hull. Metal screeched. The control room shook. Rayner clung to the railing. Chain it, how? Kyle's eyes turned toward him, grim and certain. By giving everything, just like before. At that moment, another sound cut through the chaos. A high-pitched alien wail. The sonar map flickered again, showing new shapes moving in the deep. Smaller than the Leviathan, but fast, swarming in from every direction. The divers stared in horror. Rayner's voice was almost a whisper. There are more. The AI confirmed it. Secondary entities detected. Estimated number hundreds. Kyle turned to his soldiers. To arms, the abyss is awake. Hold your ground! The soldiers roared in unison, their rifles raised. Across the fleet, thousands of warriors from another time stood ready, facing impossible odds. Above, the alien council fell silent as the realization spread. This was not a human conspiracy. This was not a hidden weapon. This was a war that should never have been forgotten. The ocean roared. The storm above split the sky, and from the trench, the swarm of abyssal creatures rushed upward, their jaws glowing with unholy light. The ocean boiled with war. From the trench below, the apex Leviathan thrashed, shaking the seabed like an earthquake. Around it swarmed hundreds of smaller abyssal creatures, their teeth glowing with eerie blue light. They darted between the warships, tearing at steel and clawing at soldiers who fought outside in diving suits. But then, something new stirred. The Resolute's AI voice echoed across the fleet. Unlocking submerged assets. Humanity's arsenal is rising, Metal groaned. From beneath the trench walls, hidden vaults split open. Towers of steel lifted out of the mud, rising with a thunderous surge. Ancient hangars cracked apart, releasing ships long forgotten. Sleek gunships, drone carriers, and torpedo subs drifted free from their resting place. Rayner's eyes widened as he saw them appear on the displays. How many ships are down here? Kale's voice was grim. All of them. This is the rest of the fleet. We were never scattered. We were buried, waiting. The alien council chamber fell silent as the feed showed it. Dozens of new warships rising like ghosts. Weapons powering up, shields flaring. One alien delegate whispered in shock. The humans? They buried an entire armada beneath the oceans. An arsenal older than our recorded history. The human ambassador's voice shook. And they left it here for a reason. The reason became clear in seconds. The smaller abyssal swarm charged, rushing toward the new ships. But the arsenal was awake. Cannons lit up the dark sea. Railguns split the water with streaks of molten fire. Drone carriers released clouds of attack craft that darted between the enemy, cutting them down in bursts of precision fire. The ocean turned into a graveyard of glowing corpses. Kyle stood tall, watching the storm of destruction. His soldiers roared in triumph, firing in unison with their ships. The abyss will not pass. Rayna held onto the console, torn between awe and terror. You're fighting like it's the last war all over again. But what if you lose? What if this monster is stronger than before? Kyle didn't look at him. His gaze was locked on the Leviathan, still climbing higher, its massive body glowing with rage. Then we chain it again. Even if it costs everything, the Leviathan struck back. A roar tore through the sea, shattering drones and cracking ship hulls. It surged upward, its tendrils wrapping around 2 battleships at once. With terrifying strength, it crushed them, dragging the wreckage down into the trench. Dozens of soldiers screamed as their lives ended in fire and steel. Rayna clenched his fists, helpless. It's killing them one by one. You can't win like this! But the AI had other plans. Deploying Arc-class weaponry. Activation required. Kale's eyes narrowed. The Arcs. From the arsenal vaults rose something different. Not ships, but titanic machines. Structures shaped like spears, each one glowing with ancient energy. There were 3 of them, larger than any battleship. Their spines pulsed with power drawn from the very ocean around them. Rayna stared at them, stunned. What are those? Kale's voice was a whisper. They're chains. Not to kill the Leviathan, but to bind it. The Arcs locked onto the Leviathan. Lightning surged between them, energy arcing across the sea floor. The monster shrieked, thrashing violently as the chains of light wrapped around its colossal body. For a moment it worked. The creature slowed. Its rise faltered. The abyssal swarms scattered in panic. On the surface, waves stilled. The storm's rage lessened. The alien council gasped. A few dared to hope. They're containing it. The humans are holding it back. But the AI spoke again, and its words froze every heart. Energy reserves 20%. Containment unstable. Or chain failure imminent. Kyle slammed his fist against the railing. No, hold it. The Leviathan's roar shattered the calm. When chains snapped, exploding in a shockwave that sent ships tumbling. Another began to flicker. The beast writhed with fury, tearing at its bindings with unstoppable strength. Rayna shouted, his voice drowned by alarms. It's breaking free. The monster's glowing eyes turned toward the fleet, full of rage and hunger. It pulled against the last chain with a force that split the seabed. The ocean itself seemed to scream, and then something worse appeared. From deep within the trench, another glow emerged. A second shape rose, almost as large as the first. The waters trembled as another Leviathan answered the call. The council chamber erupted into pure chaos. Delegates screamed, their voices filled with terror. There are more! There are more! Kyle's soldiers stood frozen, horror etched into their faces. Even the AI hesitated before speaking. New apex entity detected? Classification Cataclysm tier. Rayna's voice was a whisper. 2 of them. No one can stop 2. The surviving chains snapped. The first Leviathan was free again. Its roar drowned the seas, echoing across the planet. The second rose beside it, glowing with equal power. The arsenal of humanity had awakened. But so had the full fury of the abyss. The ocean split in 2. 2 Leviathans now towered in the trench, their glowing eyes burning like suns beneath the waves. Their roars turned the sea into thunder. Waves crashed across continents as storms ripped through the skies. The entire planet trembled under their fury. The alien council chamber descended into madness. Delegates fled their seats, shouting over one another. Some demanded evacuation of whole star systems. Others accused humanity of dooming them all, but the human ambassador did not move. His eyes were locked on the screen, his knuckles white. It is not doom, it is judgment. Down below, the fleet was breaking, ships burned. Carriers sank into the abyss. Soldiers fought to the last breath against swarms of abyssal creatures. The Resolute shook with every hit, its crew barely holding on. Rayna gripped the railing, his heart racing. We can't hold against both of them. It's impossible. Gale turned slowly, his expression like carved stone. Then we do the impossible. We use the last chain, the AI confirmed in its cold, steady voice. Arc-class failsafes detected. Warning, activation will destabilize planetary core. Risk planetary destruction, 98%. Rayna froze. Wait, did it just say destroy the planet? Kyle nodded once. His soldiers did not flinch. If the abyss rises, every world will fall. Better to lose one world than a galaxy. Rayner shook his head. That's madness. Billions live on this planet. Kyle's voice thundered through the bridge. Billions will die everywhere if we fail. The Leviathans surged forward. Their tendrils whipped across the fleet, crushing ships like toys. One massive strike tore through a carrier, splitting it in half. Hundreds of human soldiers vanished in the blast, their war cries cut short. Still the fleet held. They fought like warriors out of time, refusing to break. Kale raised his hand. Prepare the last chain. From the arsenal vaults a colossal spear began to rise. Larger than all three arcs combined, it glowed with molten energy drawn from the planet itself. The seabed cracked around it as magma surged upward, lighting the trench with fire. Rayner's voice shook. That thing, it's not a weapon, it's a bomb. The AI confirmed it without hesitation. The last chain is not designed to restrain. It is designed to end. The alien council fell into stunned silence as the feed revealed the massive construct. Some whispered prayers, others shouted curses. None looked away. The Leviathans sensed the threat. They roared in unison, their voices shaking the ocean like a war drum. Together they charged, their enormous bodies crashing through ships, tearing apart everything between them and the last chain. Kale barked orders. Hold the line! Protect the chain at all costs. The surviving warships surged forward, throwing themselves in the path of the Leviathans. Battleships fired until their barrels melted. Drone swarms sacrificed themselves in waves, detonating against scales harder than stone. Soldiers hurled themselves into the fight, knowing they would never return. Rayner's eyes burned as he watched. They're dying for a weapon that will kill them too. Kyle's gaze stayed fixed on the Leviathans. We already died once. This is just the end of the story. The Leviathans crashed through the defenders. The fleet shattered around them. Only a few ships still fought, battered and broken. The last chain pulsed with energy, brighter and brighter, feeding on the planet's core. Earthquakes shook the world. Volcanoes erupted across continents. The oceans boiled as fire rose from below. The alien council chamber shook violently as tremors reached even orbit. Delegates screamed, realizing what was coming. Entire civilizations were about to be erased in one act of desperate war. Rayner turned to Kale, his face pale. You'll destroy this world. Everything on it. How can you call that victory? Kale finally looked at him. His eyes were calm. Because if we do not, there will be no worlds left to save. The Leviathan struck. The tendrils wrapped around the last chain, trying to tear it apart before it fired. The construct groaned under their crushing power, its glowing core flickering. Alarms blared across the Resolute. The AI's voice rang out. Critical decision point reached. Activation must be confirmed by command. Kale turned to Rayner. This is your time. You must choose. If you give the order, the chain will fire. Rayner froze. His mind screamed with the weight of it. Billions of innocent lives against the survival of all known species. The ship shook violently as one Leviathan broke through the defenses and loomed before them. Its massive eye filled the view screen, glowing like a burning star. The AI repeated its cold demand. Activation required. Confirm or deny. Kale's soldiers stood silent, waiting. The council watched in horror. The galaxy held its breath. Rayner's hand hovered over the console. Sweat dripped from his brow. His lips trembled. The Leviathans roared, their tendrils closing in. Rayner whispered, I can't. The screen went black. The black screen flickered back to life. Alarms screamed across the Resolute. Hulls buckled. Soldiers shouted as water poured into shattered corridors. The twin Leviathans loomed over the fleet, their burning eyes locked on the last chain. Rayner's hand still hovered over the console. His chest heaved. The AI's voice repeated without mercy, activation required. Confirm or deny. Kale's soldiers stood waiting. Their faces were calm, even as the ocean shook. They had accepted their end long ago. Rayner's voice cracked. If I confirm, this planet dies. Billions of innocents, children, families, whole civilizations. And if I deny, those monsters break free and devour the galaxy. Kale's reply was steady. That is the burden of command. The alien council watched in stunned silence. Entire governments leaned forward, their fate balanced on one trembling human hand. Rayner closed his eyes. For a moment the weight was too much. Then he remembered Earth, the blue oceans, the families who had once sent their soldiers into the dark, never to return. He remembered the words carved on the memorial back home. Humanity stands. Humanity fights. Humanity holds the line. His eyes opened. He slammed his hand down. Confirm! The last chain awoke. The ocean erupted in fire. The seabed split apart, magma roaring upward in a storm of molten fury. The colossal spear glowed like a star, its energy blasting through the depths. The Leviathans screamed, their roars shaking the planet as chains of molten light wrapped around them. The world itself was being sacrificed. Mountains cracked, skies split with lightning, oceans boiled into steam. Cities across the planet crumbled as the ground tore open. The council chamber shook violently. Delegates fell from their seats, watching their screens in horror as the planet was ripped apart. The Leviathans thrashed wildly, their tendrils tearing ships in half, but the chains held. The last chain tightened, burning into their flesh, binding them with fire. Kyle stood tall, his face lit by the glow of the weapon. It is done. The abyss will not rise. Rayner stared at the devastation. Tears welled in his eyes. We killed the planet. Everyone on it. How is this victory? Kyle turned to him slowly. You chose survival for all others. That is the price of war. The AI's voice broke through. Warning. Planetary core collapse imminent. Evacuation required? Kyle gave a sharp nod. Signal the fleet. All surviving ships surface immediately. We will not be buried a second time. Engines roared. The battered remnants of the fleet surged upward through collapsing seas. The ocean itself fought them, storms ripping their hulls, waves like mountains crashing down. Behind them, the last chain reached its final phase. Its energy flared so bright that the seas turned white. The Leviathans shrieked one last time, their massive forms bound tight in chains of fire. Then the spear plunged into the core of the planet. The world exploded. From orbit, the recon vessel recorded the unthinkable. The ocean planet split apart, torn into fragments of molten rock and boiling water. The Leviathans were dragged into the collapsing core, their glowing eyes fading into the fire. And then, silence. The fleet broke through the surface just as the planet tore itself apart. Survivors gasped at the sight. A world shattered, its oceans scattered into space, its core blazing like a dying star. On the bridge of the Resolute, Kyle stood with his soldiers. They saluted the burning horizon, not with joy, not with victory, but with solemn pride. Rayner collapsed into a chair, staring at the wreckage. We destroyed everything. Kale's hand rested on his shoulder, and saved everything else. The alien council chamber was silent. No one shouted. No one argued. They had all witnessed it. Humanity's sunken fleet had risen, fought, and given everything to stop the abyss. At last, one alien delegate whispered, trembling, they chose death to protect life. The human ambassador's voice was firm, though his eyes glistened. This is what humanity has always done, even when the galaxy doubted us. Far above the shattered world, the surviving fleet drifted in silence. The Resolute's AI gave its final report. Leviathan threat neutralized. Casualties extreme. Mission result, humanity holds the line. Rayner stared at the stars beyond the wreckage. His voice was quiet, almost a prayer. Then it wasn't for nothing. The screen faded to black, leaving only the words, for Earth, for all, end of story. Kale's hand rested on his shoulder. And saved everything else. The alien council chamber was silent. No one shouted. No one argued. They had all witnessed it. Humanity's sunken fleet had risen, fought, and given everything to stop the abyss. At last, one alien delegate whispered, trembling, they chose death to protect life. The human ambassador's voice was firm, though his eyes glistened. This is what humanity has always done. Even when the galaxy doubted us, far above the shattered world, the surviving fleet drifted in silence. The Resolute's AI gave its final report. Leviathan threat neutralized. Casualties extreme. Mission result: humanity holds the line. Rhaenus stared at the stars beyond the wreckage. His voice was quiet, almost a prayer. Then it wasn't for nothing. The screen faded to black, leaving only the words, "For Earth, for all. End of story."